All right, one more time. Can we get a sound test? Still getting nothing on your end.
There we go. Infotech Assist entered the waiting room.
Testing. Is that any better?
I also need
Is that working? Can you hear us?
Hello?
Can you hear us?
you quite clearly. So the input audio is just fine. But the output audio might be a problem. Okay.
Okay. All right.
I'm actually hearing you from my phone, so there's something in my computer. You sound good though. Good to go.
Right.
Perfect.
But you can hear us? Okay.
Yes.
Yay. All right.
Lovely. Thank you.
Okay. Have we played the theme song? Yeah. Okay. All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the September 2024 meeting of the Board of Trustees of the St. Mary's County Library. It's been a while since we were together, so it's great to see everyone. We have a packed agenda, so I'm looking forward to some good, productive conversations. We do have a quorum, so we can move forward. We'll start with introductions. My name is Michael Dunn. I'm the president of the board. Let's go to John, and then we'll go around the table.
John Johnston, vice president.
Judith Gwynn. Dorothy Waters.
And Fitzsimmons.
John Walters.
Thank you, everybody. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda itself. So we can entertain a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Move to approve as presented.
Okay, I heard John start talking first. Thank you, John. Can we get a second?
I second.
Thank you, Dorothy.
Discussion, please.
Yeah, I need
I wish
discussion.
to add 2 agenda items. It's not like it's not already packed, but they are things that you asked for updates on. The first is a capital projects update, and the second is a security update. Security will go under position 4, and Everside Clinic will move down, and capital grants will be at after 10 on your director's report. Late breaking news.
Okay. So we are talking about adding capital improvements and security updates to the informational director's report.
I will move to approve as amended.
Thank you, John.
I second.
Thank you, Dorothy. Any further discussion? All in favor of the approved agenda as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? Great, motion passes. Next up is approval of the July 2024 minutes.
Yeah, I emailed a spelling correction for my last name on one page.
Okay. John Johnston emailed a spelling correction for his last name on the last page. Any other, I guess we can entertain a motion to approve with that correction.
So moved.
Thank you, John.
Second.
Thank you, John. Any discussion of the minutes? All right. All those in favor, you say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? The motion passes. Next up, Belinda, get your headband on. Here we go. Approval of the EALs. And we have 2 months worth, July and August. So why don't we do one at a time? We can entertain a motion to approve the July EALs. If anyone would so move.
I make a motion to approve the July EALs.
Thank you, Dorothy. We're looking for a second just on the motion before the discussion.
Second.
All right, thank you, Judith. Any discussion of the July EALs?
I have a question on page
4. So there are a number of transactions, the FSA refund to EEs.
Yes. So we had an FSA that we canceled 2 years ago due to IRS regulations. So we could not sustain or pass the IRS regulations because we did not have enough employees participating in it. They did a reconciliation 2 years after the cancellation and returned the funds to us. These funds belong to the employee. They are the employee's money. So when they returned the funds, we had to reach out to them to find out what they were for and who they went to, and these are what they are. These are the checks returned. So it's not coming from our any kind part of our budget. It's their money returned to them.
So it was a pass through. I
Yes.
imagine that was a check sent to the library and then you don't.
Yes.
So I mean, I had been thinking with the Evergreen, we had an FSA, or if we have HSAs. And it sounds like we don't.
We do not. We had one, but we don't have enough employees interested in participating in it. So we failed the IRS tax test 2 years in a row. We did a small campaign trying to get employees to participate, but no one did. We needed more to participate to make the percentages work. And so we had to cancel it at the end of that fiscal year. We would love to bring it back, but we have to find one that will work with our small company and also get enough participants that we can pass the IRS test.
It's not something we can piggyback with the county on.
No,
No.
we'd have to do it as a separate organization. We couldn't go with the county there, unlike with the insurance. What we find is that many of our part-time employees have insurance through a spouse. And so there just hasn't been high demand for this kind of coverage.
And even if we can, I think we were using the county's company if they had one. I think that's what we were doing, but we are still tested as a separate company, and that is what we failed.
Okay. Were we even close? What was the number?
I don't remember. It was 2 years ago, but
not important. Okay.
We needed more of our, we just needed more people participating.
Pardon my ignorance on this topic, but what does the F and the S stand for?
FSA, it's a flexible spending account.
Accounted for health insurance.
So you
basically.
preload money in out of your paycheck, then you can give them your receipts for your medical expenses. So it's like lowering your taxable income.
Pre-tax.
FSAs, and there used to be one called the HSA,
Yes.
healthcare. I don't know.
A health savings plan.
But
Some employers offer both.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
We tried.
Any other questions or comments about the July EAL?
Belinda, you may have already covered this, but this is a pass-through. Where's the input for this one?
So this report is only the outs.
Oh, okay.
What you see are the checks we write.
Perfect.
So this is just an out check report. So the in would show really only on our profit and loss statement. It comes in as income, but goes out as a payment.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Can I ask you a question? On pages 2 and 3, there are 2 items for Leon Utilities. On page 3, it's for the commissioners, and on page 3, it's the commissioners of Leonardtown. Can you say a little bit about sort of how that's divided up?
It
looks like the county commissioners, CSMC.
Oh, yes. So we pay the county for electricity and gas, I think, and then we pay the city for trash. Metcom. We pay the city for Metcom.
Oh.
So what happens is for Leonardtown, our bills go to the city and the county, and they give us a percentage to pay because we are connected to Garvey. So we are paying a percentage based on the square footage of our building. So for Leonardtown, those utility bills go to the county and the city, and then they are billing us a percentage, and I'm paying them directly.
Thank you. All right. So with no further questions, I think we can move to a vote on approving the July EALs. That's the motion on the table. So all in favor? Well, yeah, we're good. Sorry. Thank you, John. Love the energy. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? Okay. So it looks like our friends from Asset Strategy are here. So I don't know if we want to kind of speak with them and then come back to the EALs. How does that sound to folks?
We could do that. Could we do the celebrations real quick? Because we have a bunch
let's
of
go ahead and
staff
do our
who probably don't
celebrations
want to
here,
listen
so
to
that
asset
our staff-
strategy.
That's hard to believe. Yeah.
Serving the public.
Yes.
Well, as you can see from looking around, we've got quite a few staff celebrations this morning, and we're delighted to have them here. And the first is for the Book Match program. And we're not going to hear a lot about the Book Match program right now because we're going to cover it later. But if we have Morgan Butler, Phoebe Bailey, Ashley Carroll, and Brittany Cornish are all being recognized this morning for their service for the Book Match program. I'll go on ahead and read one. They're all the same. And then we'll hear more detail about the Book Match program later. Thank you for work on the Book Match program. On July 15, 2024, the Charlotte Hall Library launched the Book Match program, which provides personalized reading suggestions to library customers via our website. I'm not going to tell you about the rest of that because we'll hear about it later, how many we've done, but it's been a very successful service, and they're all involved with getting the request, going out and finding great matches. And that's not an easy thing to do. I mean, for example, a John Grisham reader might not necessarily like some other legal thriller because there's a different style. So just want to say thank you so much for that. And one second here. Brittany, Ashley, Phoebe, and Morgan. Give those out because I'm losing my microphone here. Thank you so
guys.
very much.
Congratulations.
You want to
amazing
say anything? They don't want to say anything. They never want to say anything. Not true. We've got some folks who do want to say something. The next one is for Christine Bigman. Christine, come on up. Thank you for your work with the Seeds program, helping to ensure we have a large stock to provide our valued customers and helping to make the process run smoother with each season. Christine, please tell us a little bit about the Seeds program.
This was something new that we tried this year that we're very proud of, like how well it's been turning out. We started in the spring and then we had a summer season and we're now in our fall season. So we do buy some of the seeds, but a lot of them are donations. Lowe's has been a really big contributor, and we have Wild Ones who does, it's like a local nonprofit that gets us native seeds. And it's been really well received in the community. A lot of people were excited for it to like start up again in September. I was managing the volunteers who did all the packaging for us, and we ended up having to keep scheduling more and more events for the volunteers because we had such a good donation lot of seeds this time. So that was nice because it's a really great opportunity to let the community help us more because we needed a whole lot of people to come in for a short-term thing. So it's really a win-win as a volunteer opportunity because they get to help us and it's manageable on our end. So thank you. And we're planning to continue it annually. So we'll even have one a winter season.
So very much. There you go. Each one of these does come with a "You Make a Difference" pin, so staff, please consider wearing that when you're out on the floor, and people can ask you, and you can say, "I make a difference." The next one's for Connor. I'm not going to read a lot of this one because Connor is going to tell us just a couple words about the geocache adventure.
Why not? Good morning. Thank you all for this. The geocache event, there were 6 spots throughout St. Mary's County. There were 3 at the library and then 3 at some of the local parks. There is an app for it where people can kind of figure out where the geographic coordinates are on their phone and kind of use that as a treasure map to go through it. When people completed all 6 spots, they actually got a wooden coin that was made at the Pack Space Makers Lab over there. I'm not sure if you've been to it, but big shout out to them. They made 100 coins for us. I thought Marianne was supposed to be here with some coins for you all. Oh, I am sorry about that. I hope she feels better. But I also wanted to say thank you to Andy Tidings. She helped me do a tour of St. Mary's County. She's the children's librarian over at Leonardtown Library. She came with me on the trip multiple times because geocache, they said, nope, you can't put it there. We have to put it somewhere else. So it was a lot of driving around St. Mary's County. So thank you all for this. I appreciate it.
I will just read that we did have over almost 400 finds were logged by families that participated, and many shared their photos with us of their adventures. Kudos for creating such a popular program which combined getting outdoors with, excuse me, the library. Congratulations, thank you. Next one's for Elizabeth. And come on up, please, Elizabeth. I'm not going to read this one either because she is going to tell you something about it.
Okay, I'll try to keep it brief, but I have a lot to say. Thank you for the award. I appreciate that. First, I would like to say, before I get to this, that Christine and Connor are both on my team at the Leonardtown Library and Adult Services. I'm super proud to have them on my team. They're excellent librarians. They very much deserve their awards and much, much more than that. So moving on to period equity is what this award is for. This has been a 2-year process, and it was actually came about because an employee anonymously sent an idea to Michael about providing period products in our restrooms. And one of the reasons I want to mention that is because a lot of times employees think their ideas and what they have to say does not matter, and it does. The library does try to listen to everyone's ideas. So this is coming about because of that employee. I still don't know who they are, so whoever they are, thank you. This is great. Yeah. And so what period equity is it is a health equity issue that is faced across the world, really. And it varies across nations, but in the United States, there are a large number of people who menstruate who do not have regular access to products. They cannot afford products because they can be very expensive. Thankfully, in Maryland, there is no pink tax, which is a tax on menstrual products. They have done away with that in Maryland, but there's a lot of places that still tax those products. So there's a cost, they're cost prohibitive. And if you're living in a multifamily household with lots of people who menstruate, it can be difficult to afford those products. If you are a foster family and you have lots of people in your home who need these products, it can be difficult to get them. People who are unhoused do not have regular access to these products. And so our goal is to make sure that people have equal access in our community to these products because it is a health issue. So there's a couple of parts to this. One, the library is already providing products for staff because it has been shown that there are missed work hours and impacts people's ability to do their job well if they don't have regular access to these products. So if someone doesn't have it and they have to go home, that's missed work time and that's missed work hours for that person. So the library is providing products for their employees, which is great. And so we are also working with the Healthy St. Mary's Partnership. There are a number of community organizations working with them, and we are working with them to provide products through our branches. So there's been 2 large collection drives already throughout the community, and then we took those products and we redistributed them at our library branches, and they were all gone within about 2 weeks. Wow. So there is a massive need in our community for this. I've had people come up to the desk, and I know other staff had too, people of all ages, in different stages of life. All kinds of people have said, hey, do you have something? It's an emergency. So we want to be able to provide that for them. So we're working in this partnership to be able to get access to more products and provide them to people. We are going to start collecting them year round. So all of our branches are going to have a regular donation site, and we're going to redistribute those in our branches. We are also going to work with Stella's Girls. It's an organization based in Charles County. They do wonderful work. Please take a look at their website. And they work globally on period health and equity. And they are going to provide us with dispensers for our women's restrooms and our family restrooms where we'll dispense free maxi pads and tampons. They'll also provide us with the products. And we're working with them in the health department in order to provide education programs. So at Lexington Park, starting in the end of September, there's going to be 3 education programs on period and health. And so we're trying to cover everything, not just access to the products, but also the education and the health equity. So I'll stop talking now, but thank you.
Thank you so very much, Elizabeth. Congratulations. And we have one more. Jeff Powers cannot be here today, but for Timothy Beers, Timothy, please come on up. Thank you for your technical expertise and time working with vendors on site to facilitate the audiovisual RFP process. You will hear much more about that later today. Your insights into the equipment we need to have for our staff and customers was invaluable in leading to a successful decision. So, you want to say anything, or are you good? We're going to say funny language. Congratulations. Thanks. Can I just say before we move on and before y'all get to escape this meeting, just how amazing the work is that you are doing, and the creativity and the innovation and the entrepreneurial spirit and just the breadth of what we offer, from personalized book selections to period equity to the RFP process to make sure the behind the scenes stuff is as strong and efficient as possible, to geocaching. Like, what are we even talking about? It's so good. To the seeds, it's what's happening in these libraries is community wide. It's not just within these four walls. And so the dedication and creativity and hard work that you all have done and that you represent on behalf of the whole team is just so inspiring. And I know I speak for the whole board just to say thank you for the incredible work you're doing. Great job. You can say if you want, but this is a public meeting. It's interesting. People in Lottie have to watch it. So.
We do have one staff member who will be staying because she is participating and completing her Lottie, which is the Library Associate Training. And this is always one of their requirements, attending a board meeting.
So I think we'll move on from here to asset strategy, and then we'll come back for the August EAL.
Morning, everyone.
Hello, gentlemen. Welcome. Good to see y'all.
Yes, same here.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
Al is on with me.
Hello, Al. Hello, John. So I think we would love to sort of try to have a really productive 15-minute conversation or so. I know that we have the quarterly report from late June, and we have the market value update as of September 10th. So I'm not quite sure where you would like to begin, and we'll go from there.
Great. And you answered our first question, how much time, and we'll be respectful of that. We'll start on page 3 and give you a brief recap of the market and a few comments John has on where has the market migrated since June 30. Put that in context for everybody.
Sure. Thanks. So looking at page 3, this is a table of the various equity, fixed income, and real assets indexes. The first 3 columns talk about the April, May, and June, which was, and then the last quarter, which was June 30th. And then the next column has year to date. And maybe you can focus your attention on the last quarter column, because in the equity indexes, this sort of gives a sense as to, what's been the best place to be in the market this year. And it'll speak to and sort of set the table for the performance that we look at in your funds that you hold. So if we look at the first 3 rows, the Russell 3000, the Russell 1000, the Russell 1000 Growth Index, those are the large cap influenced indexes that have, the phenomenon this year has been what's been called the Magnificent Seven, those very large technology focused companies like NVIDIA, Amazon, Facebook, and some of the other related companies to this artificial intelligence boom that's been in effect since early 2023. Those stocks really, those 7 stocks are, over 30% of the Russell 1000 Growth Index. They're, at least about 30% of the S&P 500 index. So because they're such a big component of the benchmarks, what they do, how they perform, pretty much sets the tone for the rest of the index. And so you can see in that last quarter, those, large cap technology focused companies that are a big component of those indexes, were positive territory with their performance. The rest of the indexes are, the mid cap and small cap indexes, and their return was all negative. So in essence, if you held the S&P 500, which was influenced by those big 7 companies, you were fine. If you didn't, you lagged the rest of those markets. And so when we go into the other pages here in the report and we look at your managers, that's really one of the bigger things that we'll can speak to in terms of what's driven your indexes. However, I will say since June 30th, and this is through the beginning of the week, September 9th, for the quarter, the Russell 1000 Growth, which has those Mag 7 stocks, that it was down 5% in the quarter, whereas some of the other indexes like the small cap index, the Russell 1000 Value Index, they've had positive performance, around 3 to 5% for the quarter. So what people who hold diversified portfolios have been hoping for some broadening of the market, that it wouldn't be so narrowly focused. And that's starting to take place. And when Al talks about the funds in your portfolio, he'll, talk about a couple of the points on the managers during this quarter to date period. So any questions that anybody has, or something else that anybody wanted to speak to regarding the market for the past quarter?
Could you give me just maybe a sentence or two connecting sort of this overall market performance to what we specifically have?
Well, if you don't mind, actually, I'll let Al speak to that, because that's where we're headed.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah. In other words, it means, your index performance did very well. Your active managers had trouble keeping up with the indexes that were influenced by those, big 7 names. But Al will speak to that as he gets going here. So Al, all yours.
So we will go to page 6 before we get into the managers, but here's the total portfolio. So we can look at, and I'll focus on the quarter, year to date, and 1 year. So if you look at the quarter, you can see we certainly couldn't have done any worse. We're in the 100th percentile. Our target, and this is part of the underperformance, as you note, is in the 94th. And compared to this peer universe, you see up above the health and welfare of less than 50 million in assets, that's the closest fit on an industry component. But this is a very conservative, it's almost operating reserves. So they have much lower allocation to equity, where we're with a 64% target for equity, 36% for fixed income. So we will certainly always look different than the peer universe. If you look at the full year, you can see the value of being more aggressive when the markets were vibrant. We're double digits, 11.7. And if you look down below for the full year for median, the average portfolio in the peer universe is 7%. So for the quarter, part is asset allocation. The other part is coho, which we're going to take more time on with some information at the end, as they're in the value camp. And during this surge with the Magnificent Seven, they certainly are not in a position with the type of stocks they own to be a strong competitor. But again, we're going to walk through that. You can see for the year to date, here's sort of from quarter to quarter. So for year to date, you can see we're up in the 11th percentile. Our target is also up in that top quartile range. But in 1Q, we had an excellent quarter. We actually were in the first percentile, returned 5.5%, index at 4.9. So we outperformed, and the market rotated in the second quarter to really focus predominantly on, as John alluded to, the growth components. And the market has rotated since then, and we're going to talk about that a little bit at the end in the market value update, so you can see how this rotation has had a positive impact on the portfolio and the managers. So let me stop there. Any questions on the quarter and year-to-date 1 year?
I do have a question on how you calculate where the target is.
A great question. The target is a group of indexes, and the detail of them is shown on page 8. Al, you were headed in that direction, right?
We are headed in that direction.
Okay. Yeah.
Or I might back up, make it simpler for everybody, if you don't mind, to talk about that index on page 5. And if you look at to the left, this is information coming out of the investment policy statement. And the first component, what asset classes are approved for the portfolio to invest in. So you can see the domestic equity, international equity, fixed income, and cash is residual. There's no target for it, but it can maintain some cash. And then to the third column, for each asset class, there's an approved target. So you can see, as an example, for large cap, our target is 27%. And if you come over to the right to range, for each asset class, there's an upper limit, lower limit. So we can be allocated as low as 17% or as high as 37. So it's a 10% factor up and down.
So this is just saying that our current asset division is aligned with our policy statement.
Correct. And that's embedded in the quarterly report.
Yeah.
The target is fed by this data. And John was running us up to page 8. So in here we can see each asset class as an example, or target.
Well, actually, at the bottom of the page is the index.
Index.
Right. And this is the target. And you can see that the target is made up of, for large cap, S&P 500 at 27%. For small mid cap, it's the Russell 2500 at 17%. And the rest of them are the other indexes that are components of your target that reflect the asset classes that you have. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, it kind of does, but I'm having kind of a slow day mentally, and I don't want to hold up the discussion here. So let's forge on.
Okay.
I have a question, and I know our time is a little short. On the one hand, I think we are gluttons for punishment by looking so closely every quarter at this. If we looked at our retirement savings every quarter, we would lose our minds. I think we do have to give it time to grow and develop. But at the same time, looking at how well the index did over the last 3 months versus the manager's very human, very understandable challenge to kind of keep up with that, I find myself wondering, what is the benefit of having managers versus just parking all this money in an index and letting it rise with the tide of the market? What do you see as the value add there?
Let me give you an example. Active management. This is on page 8, and it's the Fuller and Thaler, so small cap. And short history, but if we got to the far right, it's been in the portfolio since December 21, and you can see the 10% return versus the Russell 2000 index, a -1. So active management can certainly have that positive impact. But you do want to look at long cycles. We like to focus on 5 to 10 years because you need to run cycles that we've seen where you have challenging downward focused, you have big momentum markets on the upside. So it adds value over the long term. And yes, there's periods where it's going to have a challenge beating the index. On the fixed income on the next page, page 9, just to pick a actively managed component there. If you look at inception, and this is very short, November of 23, but 9% versus 7. It's a big dispersion on the fixed income side. So the actively managed funds, when we look at long cycles, when we brought in the search packages, had been able to add that value over and above the index net of fees. Yeah. But that could be a topic to revisit at a further meeting, and we could pull up some of the academic studies on that to just provide a stronger foundation on active versus passive.
Yeah, thank you.
So to keep this moving on page 8, so we mentioned Coho. And you can see their performance for the quarter, 100th percentile. Go out to the far right from inception, again, a short time period, about 9 months, but certainly well below the benchmark. And we're going to take a few minutes on that as we get off of this page. And John's comments earlier. So we looked at Coho. What did they have done since the close of the quarter? As we saw this broadening of the market, our expectation was they would start to improve and plot closer to the index and higher in the peer universe. So from the close of the market yesterday, Coho's up 6.2 versus 6.0 for the index. So certainly closing that gap, you can see the large underperformance for the quarter, where -6 versus -2. And that's fairly typical of whether it's value or growth, as we have market rotations. Certain funds in the portfolio will improve, others will find some more challenges. And the value of being broadly diversified, you have exposure to growth, value, large, small, international, et cetera.
So I know our time is already running short. Are there any key points that you would like to convey with us? I want to make sure we have time for our board members to ask any questions.
Sure. Why don't we jump quickly to Coho? John can point out particularly.
Can I ask a question on Coho?
Sure.
We're up 6.2 since when? What period of time is that?
Since June 30th.
So we were down 6.79. So we haven't quite regained the loss? Is that correct?
It hasn't, no. If it was up 6.2 from that point, it hasn't recaptured that. You'd have to earn more than that. But what we're looking, the other thing that might be helpful to look at is you go back to, or go out to the far right and just look at inception. 10.9% versus 21% for the benchmark. What we've seen over time is when benchmarks reverse because of market action, that gap can be made up very quickly. Actually, I think Al was going to take you to a page in the book here on page 11. Al, I think you were going to point out a few things on that. That was be helpful just to show where Coho is helpful in portfolios over longer periods of time.
So the concept when we retained Coho was to look for a fund that its performance over those 10-year cycles was driven by being more defensive, so losing less in down markets. And you can't have it both ways. So that also means in big momentum markets, this fund will high probability not be in the top half of a peer universe. We have Edgewood in the large cap, which is on the growth side, and it's the mirror opposite. It takes more risk for higher return. So these two funds complement each other in the broad asset allocation. But you'll look at, there's 3 calendar years. Let me start with 2022, since that's the most recent and the most devastating. And you can see down below, if the median fund, and this is in the large cap value peer universe, lost 5.8%. And Coho did have red ink, lost 2.9. Certainly good down market protection. It was in the top 25th percentile of the peer universe. The 2018 was another very challenging year. And you see the same dynamics. The average fund lost 8.6. They're down 3.9, 14th percentile. And 15 was less severe, but again, same dynamics, 23rd percentile. So it does hold up. And again, if you look at some of the big momentum years, so coming out of 2022, we know the markets rotated pretty aggressively, and they did not do well at all. Is where they will tend to struggle.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate having a diversified portfolio, and it makes sense to have some of these defensive funds, but at the end of the day, Coho is not even 8% of our total portfolio. And, you know, I'm concerned about the benefits we're missing out on large cap equity, for example, which is 27% of our portfolio and is really underperforming.
I would also note, I feel like when we did the reallocation a year ago, we had these same questions about Coho, that we had these concerns. This is not new.
Right.
And I would chime in on the international equity, again, 20% or more of our portfolio with poor performance. So we have a huge piece of the pie that's not performing well. Two large pieces of the pie that are just not performing well, not even meeting the targets that have been set. So I don't know how you'd like to address that.
We'll go to page 14 and let's put Coho in context and the options that are available to us. So in these scatter charts, you can certainly see, no surprise, they're in that bottom left quadrant where that standard deviation is well to the left of the standard deviation line. And the performance then is well below the return line. And when we retained the fund, it had a similar plotting, which was discussed with the committee. If we want to make an adjustment, as you can see with the other dots, there's certainly other funds that have different risk return profiles in the large cap value peer universe. And we can certainly look at other options where we'll take on, in theory, a bit more standard deviation risk, but we'll also compete better in the peer universe. But again, this is what we presented to be very, very defensive, knowing these are not endowment foundation dollars where you have money coming in every year. You have to live off the corpus. So it was, again, a very, very defensive posturing.
I don't recall that we asked for a very, very defensive posture. We're actually looking for growth. And looking at this, and you've had the fund for quite a few years now, when do you anticipate that we're going to hit our target?
So the target is certainly running very close to the target. If we get out to the,
I mean, our target for the fund.
For the fund.
Let's put it a different way. I think we're mixing up the word target. The fund itself, in total, the portfolio is at about 27% of being what they considered, quote, fully funded. So I'd like to hear from you on your take on what it's going to take to get that number higher based on investing prowess.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, and including that a timeline. We need to be specific here on the timeline. When are we going to get to the point of being self-sustaining?
The idea is that can't put a target and say that we're going to get there in 2 years. And I think what we have to do is look at what an average annual return would have to be over time that would allow you to potentially earn your way to that. And we do have asset allocation analysis that we've done that can show a projection or an estimation in terms of just what what an average annual return would need to be that could give you a sense as to what your funding status could be in, say, 5 years or so. Is that helpful for you in terms of developing something like that?
Yes, that would be helpful to see. Where do we expect to be in 5 years, in 10 years? That'd be great. Thank you.
You know, the other factor, if we understand this correctly, you're cash flow positive. You're not taking anything out of this account to fund the benefit. Is that still correct?
Yes.
So the fact that we've averaged 6.5% from inception, that's all positive growth because you're not taking any, typical and defined benefit plan. They need to make, the actuary says you, to meet your target, you need to average 6% per year. And if you get above that, that seriously impacts the funding ratio that is established by the actuary.
And I think you probably use an actuary for your plan too. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they've made an assumption in projections in terms of what your investment return over time is going to be. That's a component of the valuation that they do.
1920, we have as much money.
I'm sorry, Michael, I didn't hear that.
We had in 2019 almost as much money as is in the fund now, but the market, and we lost a lot of money. Not on you, I'm just pointing out go up and down, and we need to remember that we are recovering from losses still, and we've made those up, but it was a tough go there for a couple of years.
Any final questions or thoughts?
Yes, I have one, if I may. You have validated my belief in managed funds, and yet here we have the Schwab U.S. Broad Market, which is an ETF, an unmanaged fund in a fee-based account. Is that really appropriate?
Well, it's an index. It follows a broad market index of large. So we think that there should be some, especially in large cap, an index-like strategy as a component of it, because the large cap market is very efficient, and it is relatively difficult for active managers to outperform in different periods. And so that's why we have that in here as a component along with your two active managers, so that we've not ignoring the fact that those the index strategies do have periods of strong performance, especially the last 3 years in terms of what's been happening with the S&P 500.
And my last comment is a question. I think in conferences past, we have asked that there not be any cash on the sidelines. Are we paying for anything out of that cash?
I don't think there is. If you look at the market value update, you'll see that cash was invested. So as of September 10th, that cash has been put in there. We've and we had our analysts take a look at the funds to make sure that they're reinvesting all dividends and interest distributions that come out of those funds. So, you know, what we're as we look forward, we're going to pay attention to this to make sure that nothing is leaking out of those from any sources that would be adding cash into this fund.
I think, John, you had a question or comment?
Yeah. Well, hopefully this will be brief. Does the strong possibility of a federal interest rate cut have any impact on our plan? Any changes we would need to make?
Actually, what it has done is that it's going to be very helpful to, for example, Dodge and Cox income, fixed income, which had, you know, the benchmark had a negative return and Dodge and Cox was flat for the year. It'll start getting some decent performance as we start going through the coming quarters and year. It should also broaden out the performance and help Fuller and Thaler. It should help Coho, as well as some help for MFS as well. So, you know, interest rate cuts are very positive for equities.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen. Well, thank you so much for joining us as always. And we will wait with bated breath for the next update.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Have a great day.
Bye-bye now.
Any comments or thoughts before we go back to the EALs?
For $10,000 a year, I think we need to leave these people.
I agree. John's note about the ETF is like paying the babysitter to take the kids to the IKEA play place.
Good analogy.
I'll just note that we're not getting any closer to hitting our target and being self-sustaining. We literally have gained no ground. And while there is some improvement on some of these funds, they're nowhere near what the market has done. They can show you 11% growth, but we all know in the market we've seen 18, 19, 20% growth. So we're paying a manager to do less well than the market itself, which a broad-based market fund would have done better for us. But the important thing is we're holding on to an OPEB at this point that serves no purpose. If we're not going to become self-sustaining, why are we holding on to the OPEB investment? This is a big question that takes a little more consideration, but we literally have $1.5 million sitting in an account that we can't access. And on this path, we're never going to be able to access this money. So unless we need to change the path, or we're tying up money for no purpose whatsoever. And there's a couple of paths. One is to change fund managers and be more aggressive with setting a target for ourselves. Or letting the fund go to a completely self-sustaining, what did you call it, John, like the ETF? It's a managed fund, right? It's
a balanced fund.
Yeah. Or we liquidate the OPEB. And we are doing pay-go as we are right now. And we continue doing pay-go. We liquidate the OPEB. We don't have to bother with investments anymore. There are agencies that do this. We're not required to have the OPEB. And we can draw down and start spending our OPEB expenses from it until it's gone. And then we're on a strictly pay-go atmosphere and we don't have to deal with investments. So there's just some options that I think we should be considering and discussing at some point. But to sit here and tread water makes no sense. So
there is a rough way to calculate getting to our target. So let's say 27% funded is the right number. We'd like to double that. We want to get it up to 54%. All right, so then the question is, over how many years? Well, if we want to double in, let's say, 10 years, you divide that 10 into 72, and you get 7.2. It'll be 7.2 years at 10%. We'll double it. If you think 10% isn't going to work, 6%?
Right.
6 into 72 is 12 years.
Yeah.
But that only gets us to 54%.
What about his comment that you just need to have 6% growth a year to meet the target, and that we have exceeded that threshold?
I'm not sure he knows what our target is. And you find that in the annual report. We know our target is over $3 million at this point. So at 80%, you could draw down and draw off your gains and not touch your principal. So that's about 2.6 million. So which is doable in 10 years. I can't see how 6% is going to get us there, because the target is always increasing because healthcare costs are increasing. Our costs are increasing. So the 3 million goes up every year. So we're not even catching up to that.
Not to mention the fact that as the market value grows, so does the bite that these people take.
Well, that's true. And my calculation, my rough calculation is we paid out over $150,000 to Asset Strategy since they've had this fund. That's $150,000. That's not including gains. And how much would we have gained on this market in the last 10 years? I mean, it could have been easily over 200,000, 250. So
I think they have given us and that might have been what came from the actuaries. I don't remember their number.
That is from the actuary, okay. Yeah.
But I have seen recently somewhere, and I'll have to search around and see where I saw it, that the thinking now is about an 8% return.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6 seems very low to me.
Okay.
To get to our target?
Just in general.
What the actuaries are talking about.
Yeah.
So I think that I would like us to move on to the other items. I know that we have had spirited discussions about the OPEB, and is it in good shape? Is it not in good shape? And I think we can leave that aside. I think that when we just look at this as a contractual service that we are engaging in, I think there are legitimate concerns about, are we getting enough bang for our buck, right? And the library team has done an amazing job of revisiting contracts and making sure that we're operating with quality and efficiency. And I think the same set of questions apply here. And so even setting aside the whole OPEB thing, I think we can look at, are we getting our money's worth for the performance of this money based on what asset management is doing, versus us just dumping it into account, hitting go, and let it rise with the tide. So I share those concerns too.
I'll just point out, remember the risk of that. There's substantial talk about the market currently being overvalued. And if you put it all in one fund, you might find what happened what happened was what happened in 2019, and that it goes about 35% down.
Yeah.
So there is risk with anything, but I appreciate your thoughtfulness about this process and your willingness to try to consider all options, not only to have efficiency, but to get the best money that we can for our retirees.
Absolutely, right? That is our responsibility as fiduciaries. And so let's keep mulling this over. All right. Let's go back to EALs. That feels good, doesn't it? August EALs. Can we entertain a motion to approve the August EALs?
So moved.
Thank you, Judith. Can we get a second?
A second.
Thank you, Dorothy. All right, questions and comments. Let's discuss.
I'm on page 2 of 5 for August.
You speaking to the mic, John?
I'm sorry, 2 of 5 for August. A little over halfway down, Lexington Park trash, $1,133. That's the monthly charge?
Yes.
And who does it for Lex Park?
Waste management.
Waste management. Okay.
It's right there.
We are trying a new company at Charlotte Hall in contract with Smyrla, and we're seeing that those expenses are going down. We want about a 6-month evaluation period because the customer reports about that new company were just frankly terrible, but we're going to give them a try. And if after 6 months they are able to perform as we hope, then it will take us a little bit of time to get out of the contract with Waste Management, but we do hope that we can be able to save some money there in the future.
Okay. It seems to me that when all of those are aggregated, we could be out very productively with an Emma bid across the 4 or 5 companies that are here in the county right now. Of course, then you got quality issues, but we can save some money.
Other questions about the EALs?
What is Lyrasis on page 3?
Lyrasis is the company that provides our Palette app.
Okay, thank you.
And we have grant funding for that.
It's a pass-through grant.
Perfect. Thank you.
So that comes in and goes right back out. It's not within the budget.
We have a state grant for that.
How did we wind up with 2 payments for Lexington trash in that 1 month? I'm on
Because
4 or 5.
Because I took vacation at the end of July, so I did not pay the trash bill until the beginning of August, and then I usually pay it at the end of August or at the end of a month. So I paid one at the beginning of August and one at the end of August.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I think, are we ready to vote? All those in favor of approving the EALs for August, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? Great, the motion passes. Belinda, don't ever go on vacation, please.
I will be on vacation
How
in
dare
like
you.
3 weeks, so.
Prepay.
All right, next item on the list, the treasurer's report and the intern costs. Michael, can you speak to this?
Marion County. Turn. $3,390.09.
Tressa already has it, and she said that as soon as she's back from her being out, that she will write a check. She just wanted you guys to know that it was on the agenda and so that you could see what was going to be paid.
Great, thank you.
So we do have now 6 employees who started off as interns and have become library employees. It's just a great investment, I think, in growing our
Absolutely, it's a great pipeline.
And just so you know, you are paying for the Lexington Park intern, because we did have 4 this year. So you're paying for the Lexington Park one. Her name was Kyara Kota Williams. She has been she was also an intern last year for, I believe, Hall. And they loved her and she worked really well. She did a lot of the free luncheons for the community here at Lexington Park, as well as a bunch of other summer reading programs.
Great, thank you, Kyra. Happy to support. All right, John, can you give us a Smurla report?
Yes, we had 2 meetings, one in August and a brief one in September. August meeting, we held interviews with board candidates. Yeah, so at some point we should have an announcement about who will be joining the board. We got a chance to meet Morgan Miller, the new state librarian. She was sitting in. We have a pre-bid conference for strategic RFP scheduled for in October, and I'll be the board liaison for that particular conference. And we're looking at planning orientations, with the anticipation of having new members on the board, additional members will be planning some orientation and training. And at September's meeting, we met with Quantum Financial, for the plan there, and just in brief, we acted on the recommendation and voted to keep $32,000 in a money market account and then move the rest to an intermediate bond fund to get some higher yield from anticipated interest rate cut. And then,
and what's the purpose of that money that you're moving to that bond fund?
I believe it's the same, generally the same purpose that we have with our investments, like
Huh.
So when we gave him latitude to, whenever there's a interest rate change would lead to a market change, to move up the 5% of the total portfolio to a broad-based market account. Give him the discretion to do that. Based on the times right.
Okay.
John, do you remember the name of that bond fund, the intermediate bond fund?
Get up here.
Michael, anything to add on the Smurla front?
Ashley is reaching out to regional librarians, including school librarians, to try to arrange a meeting for all of us to get together. And we are very thankful for Smyrla's support. They are giving us some money for Hoopla, and they are giving us some money for our mobile hotspots. So that's state money that is a pass through them. So we're grateful for that support from them.
Thank you, Smyrla.
Yeah, John, I can get you the name of that bond fund later.
Okay.
You might borrow your pen.
Thank you, John.
Oops, sorry.
All right, tell you what, why don't we take a 5-minute break before we dive into the director's report? Could I get a motion, John, Michael, what do you think?
May I suggest one change here, and that is, I've got a lot to get through, but there are action items. So may we move the action items up and cover those first? And then if I don't get through everything that I want to tell you, I'll get to you next month.
That sounds like a plan. Bless you, John. Can we get a motion to take a 5-minute break? Thank you, John.
Second.
Thank you, Judith. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstained? All right, a hard 5. So we're back at 10:44. Thank you.
Just know we're on campus. Yes. Yeah.
There's a big
Ready to come back? Okay, welcome back, everybody. We are on for the director's report. Turn it over to Michael.
Thank you so very much. We're going to move to action items, and I think the first two shouldn't take any time to speak of. The first one is the holidays for 2025, and that's in your packet. And you'll see that it's really just the federal holidays and standard, and pretty much in terms of, we've always taken those before, so no real changes. But we do need you to approve those as days that the library will either close early on a Thursday, for example, for Thanksgiving Eve at 5 instead of going to 8, because nobody visits us, or on New Year's Eve.
All right, we can entertain a motion to approve the 2025 holiday schedule.
So moved.
Thank you, Judith.
Second.
Thank you, John. Discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving the schedule as moved, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? Nope, the motion carries.
Thank you so much. The next is the schedule of your meetings next year in 2025, and that is also in your packet. You have us down for the second Friday of each month, but note that on 3 of those occasions, you're looking at a 3-day weekend happening, and this year you said you didn't want to meet on such days, and you moved that meeting back 1 week. So our question to you is, do you wish to continue with this schedule as said, or would you like to move, for example, the February meeting to the 21st, the April meeting to the 18th, and the October meeting to the 17th?
Well, the 18th would be,
The 18th,
the 18th is
April?
actually Good Friday, right? The 18th is actually, and that's a holiday weekend for a lot of us.
Yeah.
We don't have that on this,
That is not a holiday for the library.
You could also move it.
Easter is,
back.
but just Easter Sunday, which.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could move it a week earlier also.
Yeah, I mean.
Or keep it.
I mean, I'd be okay with the 11th because it doesn't impact me.
I am also, I think I'm probably well, you probably have kids in school too, but
I'll be stuck here, so. All right, so then I think we could entertain a motion to approve the schedule, but for the February and October meetings, pushing those meetings back a week and leaving the meeting on April 11th as is.
Yes, October becomes the 17th.
And February becomes the 21st.
The 21st, sorry.
Sharon, what do you think?
For myself personally, I have every other Friday off and this matches, and if you move it, it doesn't match and I have to take time off. So
What
I'm
matches the
open.
14th and the 10th match?
The dates as set matches the days I
Oh.
have off already, but it's fine. I can flex my time.
I don't want to upset the apple cart, and it doesn't matter if we have 4, but these might impact other board schedules that I have.
Okay.
We
Still have 4.
I'm fine with leaving it as it is.
All right.
Giving Sharon the opportunity.
Okay. Why don't we entertain a motion to then leave the schedule as written, even with these 3-day weekends and spring break?
I move.
All right.
I so move.
Sharon so moves.
Second.
Any other discussion? So that means that we would be meeting on the Friday of, President's Day weekend, whatever happens in October. I forget that one.
Indigenous Peoples Day.
Okay. Columbus Day and Indigenous Peoples Day. Great. All right. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor of approving this schedule as written, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstained? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you so much. I feel it is important to say thank you to Sharon for days when she takes time off to be here. I know all of you sacrifice a lot to give to this board, and it is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. It looks more complicated than it is. You've got 3 versions of the director's report, but they're really not 3. So the first one has, at the very last page, the director goals that you approved on February 9th of this year for the director. You subsequently decided to have 2 assessments, one at the end of the fiscal year, which would switch us over to a fiscal year assessment for your director. The rest of these 3 are all the same, from performance evaluation from the beginning until library director goals. They're exactly the same. And this is a form that Judith developed with your input. You have not approved it yet. So the next 2 versions, one is just for the fiscal year, and the only difference between the others are that last page, and you'll see it says goals for January 1st through June 30th, 2024. And I took the goals that were established for the year, put them in there, and added a few just because I thought that they were important places for me to comment back with you. The next one, again, everything is the same up to it says library director goals for July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. And I took the goals that you had established and then looked ahead next year, January through June, and added a couple there. So you're approving 2 forms, one for the fiscal year end and one for the year we're in now. And you're also approving the verbiage that has been developed for this form.
Well, do you have one for 2022? No. These forms? It was at the back of the packet.
It's the last pages. Yes, sorry, we've changed the order around a bit here.
2025.
Oh, I didn't bring that one.
Okay, so please, Dorothy.
Oh, I was gonna say there's a spelling error on one,
Yes.
on the 3rd page of the 2025 goals. So grants number 5 is spelled incorrect.
Okay, Michael, thank you very much for preparing this and kind of laying this out. So just to be clear, tell you what, if folks have these documents ahead, the one that says library director goals for 2024, let's call that like the first option. And then we've got library director goals for January 1 through June 30th, 2024. Let's call that like the second version. And then we got the library director goals for July 1, 24 through June 30th, 2025. Let's call that number 3. So I guess we need to figure out coverage to make sure we're okay moving forward, right? So I think that as we look ahead, we talked about moving to our fiscal year cycle. So we need to finalize and approve at least number 2 to cover this 6-month period as we get onto the fiscal year cycle. And then I guess the question is also, do we approve number 3 so that we are covered with goals through the end of this fiscal year? And I think that once we approve these forms, the next step would be for Michael to give us his input on number 2, presumably, and then we as a board prepare that 6-month evaluation period. Okay, so I guess, can we entertain a motion to approve? Let's do these separately. Can we entertain a motion to approve number 2 for the 6-month period?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you, John. Thank you, Judith. Any discussion about number 2, the final version of the evaluation form that we'll use for this 6-month period, the first half of 2024? All right, all those in favor of approving number 2, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? Nope. Okay, motion carries. So we're good on that. Next step, let's look at number 3. So, Michael, you said you added a couple goals here?
Yes, they were for the period of January 1st through June of 30th of 2025, because those were not addressed in the goals you approved this past February. That time period was not addressed during that time period. So I just said, looking ahead, the budget process, and that will be something for next year. Let me see what else I might have added. Let's see, we do need to fix the spelling error on number 5. It says seek grants to enhance services. Really, those are pretty much the goals that you had already set. About the only thing that I would see that was an addition was an ensure an effective budget request process for fiscal year 26.
Okay. All right, so I think we can entertain a motion to approve this evaluation form for the rest of this fiscal year, this form number 3. Anybody would so move?
So moved.
Thank you, Judith.
Second.
Thank you, Dorothy. Discussion about this number 3 document, besides fixing the spelling error.
Okay, I don't know, we may have jumped ahead. So on option 2, item 5 is conduct the organizational climate survey in 2024. And then we had the same one on option 3. So, I got this wrong, Michael. Didn't it only be in there?
That should not be there on number 3 because we're doing it this October and we already have the form that we're ready to go on.
But this form, option 2, is for the performance period ending June 30th. So wouldn't it come off option 2 and go to option 3?
Yes, exactly.
Am I reading that right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we would have to go back and modify option 2 and strike out item 5 on the director's goals, because he's going to do it in the fall, which is,
I think
is that right?
No,
mine doesn't say that. I'm sorry.
What has it?
Yeah, but one has it, but that's not something that we're looking at.
Yeah,
Page 3 of my option 2, as it were, number 5 is ensure effective role at a mobile library operation.
Correct.
So it's only in the performance year 25, one time.
Yes, it should only be one time.
Okay.
And it is only one time, in fact.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think we're okay. All right, any more discussion on number 3? Okay, all those in favor of approving it, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstained? No? Okay, motion carries.
All right, thank you so much. It's nice to have that. I will provide feedback for your consideration before your next board meeting, and you might wish to set aside a sort of separate time where you'll meet privately to discuss that.
Yes.
A closed session.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Yeah, once you're able to get that to us in the coming weeks, we'll go from there. Thank
you. I do wish to move our mobile library update which is number 9 ahead. And the reason why is because Sandy has to go do a stop with the mobile library. So, Sandy, if you would please just take it away. There is a report in your board about what's been happening with the mobile library. I've been documenting it stop. And you'll see that between the mobile library and our outreach, and we've only been counting since March, we've gone over 10,000 visit or 10,000 people. So it's actually several pages long. So yeah, Sandy, please.
So good morning, everyone. As Michael said, we're entering our 7th month on the road full time. We've hired our 3rd full-time staff member who we're very thankful for, and she's going to really help us increase our capacity so that we can reach more community members. The plug and the pad are now fully functional for the mobile library. That's a milestone. And just to run down, our team operates in 4 ways. We have the monthly recurring stops with the mobile library. We have one-time visits with the mobile library. We have mobile library events, which are things like the solar eclipse viewing party, which we had earlier in the year, and then our Spark story time in the park as part of the summer reading programs that we did. And then we have outreach that we schedule and attend without the mobile library. Speaking of the recurring stops, in September, we are going to have 25 total stops. 14 of those will be public, and 11 are private. And private stops are those like daycare, senior facilities, high schools that the general public wouldn't attend. We have been constantly evaluating our stops, and we have begun making modifications to the route. Some of the initial ones that we included were ones that we reached out to set up in hopes that we would reach the far-flung regions of the community and try to bring that service to everyone. But now we're getting more requests, and so we are altering our routes to try and meet those requests and serve those needs and find those places where we will have the most impact. So we've added 9 new stops recently. We're also establishing partnerships. We're going to be working with the Maryland Food Bank. They're going to be joining us down in Ridge. We're moving some of our stops to later times in the day, and we are establishing Saturday stops as well in hopes to reach more people. Let's see, and so we talked about the recurring stops. The one-time visits are things like the Juneteenth event, Family Literacy Day, the Cherry Blossom Festival. We worked with the school system this summer to visit Title I neighborhoods and spread awareness of the mobile library. We have events like I mentioned, and then outside of the mobile library, we offer regular story times across the county. We do STEAM programming for some lower elementary students. We visit the Community Corrections Center, and then we also have upcoming events this fall: Riverfest, Blessing the Fleet, Wellness Fair. So it goes on and on. So we are actually involved in a lot of different areas. So does anybody have any questions for me? I know Michael said there might have been some questions about weather cancellations. And I think there are some typos perhaps on the spreadsheet that you had. We didn't actually have that many cancellations. We did have 3. 1 was for a tornado warning, and 2 were for heat-related issues that have now been resolved, that we have the parking pad and we have the ability to plug in and keep the air conditioner running so the vehicle stays at a temperature that will allow us to be at a comfortable temperature when we're out.
Yes, we literally had things melt inside the mobile library this summer. It's an aluminum structure. It gets really hot. So that's why it's so important. And thank you, the county, for getting that pad with the electrical outlet in place. It did take far longer than we had hoped, but we're glad it's there because it allows the vehicle to stay at a temperature. So if you've got a day where the heat index is 107 and it's still 90 degrees at 7 o'clock at night, the mobile library would never cool down.
And we did have the generator, but we couldn't just run the generator continuously because it runs on diesel fuel. And also it's adding hours to the generator, which is a very expensive piece of equipment. I think it's $14,000, purchased and installed. So we want to take care of our generator. With the shore power cord that we're now able to access with the plug and the pad, we can keep the air conditioner running at all times, and it's a much cheaper prospect to run it that way.
Where is Point of Change on this?
Point of Change, that's a brand new stop there in Charlotte Hall. They are a drug and residential treatment center.
What's your target audience at St. Mary's College?
Well, they have actually been after us from the beginning to try and establish a stop there with their students and their faculty. So that's a brand new one that's starting in September. And so we're hoping to reach some of the college students. We actually had several students join us at the stop in Ridge at Dollar General saying that they would like a stop at their location because I think their library has more technical volumes than actually, more of the recent publications.
What's the date for that?
That is coming up.
Where are y'all going to be on campus? I'll come say hello.
Well, I'm not sure yet. I'm working with Kelsey Bush, and so I need to find out exactly where we're going to be.
So this could be a recurring or a one-time, you're not sure yet?
It will be a recurring. So the way that you can tell which stops are recurring and public, they are actually on our website and on our website calendar. And so yes, St. Mary's College, that is going to be, that will be the 4th Wednesday of the month. And so, and like I said, we will continue to evaluate and we'll see, how that goes. And I would like to address some of the numbers I know look small. We did see some drop off during the summer. It was really hot for a lot of people. We modified service in some cases to try and accommodate instead of visiting the St. Mary's Adult Medical Daycare, instead of having everyone come out with their wheelchairs and their walkers, we actually took carts in, to try and still find a way to serve them.
Do you have any numbers on, and it's okay if you don't, on new cards, people actually getting new library cards that never had them before? Do you track that, or do you have any feel for that?
I don't have that number right now, but I can try to find it. Amy has her laptop and is ready to go. So I know we have been signing up, and but what I did want to say, talking about the numbers, we were at St. Mary's Adult Medical Daycare this week, and we had 19 people on board within an hour. And that is a lot, and it was almost too much because with using the wheelchair lift and the wheelchairs, it's a bit much. But then we might have a stop where we have 7 people in an hour, which that's quite a different number. But 7 can also be a really great interaction because we're issuing library cards and we're talking about our resources and we're assisting people. So and we do seem to have more people at the private stops than at the public stops so far.
I have 2 questions.
So Amy has found that we've issued 36 new library cards in the past 3 months.
Okay. Dorothy.
I have 2 questions. What does SPARK stand for?
SPARK stands for Story Time in the Park. And so that was the program that we created this summer. And every Monday we had a story time followed by unstructured play and an art activity in different parks all across the county. And so we had a great turnout. On average, it was about 55. We were at Dorsey Park one Monday and we had 97 people attend. So it's been popular. We got a lot of positive feedback.
Okay. And the other one was, what does the stop at the Dollar General, that's the Maryland Food Bank, what do you do? What does that encompass?
That's a great question. We were going to address that. I'll let Brittany speak to this. If Brittany, if you could. We are now working with them, and I saw that when I was at Charlotte Hall recently. It's a really great program. Brittany, take it away.
So the Maryland Mobile Food Bank is basically an outreach service. They have a grocery store on board, and people in the community can come to them and get bags of groceries for free. There's no strings attached. At this last stop at Charlotte Hall, they had free produce, free ground meat, ground turkey, ground beef, ground chicken. They also provide formula and toiletries for families. And this last stop on August 29th at Hall, they provided 42 families with items. And within those families, they were able to service 119 people within the county. It's a monthly stop. They park in our parking lot. There's nothing for us to do except put it on our event calendar. We go out and check on them if they need anything, but they have volunteers that work on the mobile market with them, and they carry the groceries and everything to folks' cars if they need it. They also have a wheelchair accessibility to have people come on to the mobile market. So yeah, it's just something new. They reached out to us once I started up at Charlotte Hall, and it's been pretty successful.
So we will then meet, our vehicle will meet their vehicle, and their vehicle is even larger than ours, and it's refrigerated at the same time, and start offering kind of more than just food for the mind. And I did go on it when it was at Charlotte Hall. It's very attractive. The produce is fresh. And we have to thank Kroger, among others, for donations to that program. So they're separate from us, but we're delighted to be partnering with them. And one thing I just like to note in addition is that we have a little food pantry, not a book pantry, at Charlotte Hall. A very kind lady who has a food bank for her church, and when they have things that are left over, she'll come stock that. And I was recently out there putting concrete in the reading post because they were falling over. And 4 people came to that during that time, and she came to stock it. So I thanked her. And she'll stock on a Friday. Sometimes the food is gone by a Saturday. So there's a high demand up there. We think of it as an affluent part of the county. But in that area, we're finding that there's great demand for necessities. So we're happy to be a part of that.
I have a question, please, about your one-time visits. Looking at the descriptions, they seem to be for things that are probably recurring, like the Cherry Blossom Festival or Juneteenth. Do you anticipate these becoming regular scheduled stops in the future?
Well,
yes.
the library.
Go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
The library does visit those as part of its outreach program yearly. And so this was the first time that we had taken the mobile library there. We also usually have a table of staff members that are working the outreach event as well. But we call it a one-time visit just because it doesn't happen monthly. But yes, it is like an annually reoccurring event.
And I would anticipate the Cherry Blossom Festival of Juneteenth continuing to the future. And if they want us there, we will be there. So that's kind of why it's called one time, rather than just have a blank space for 11 months up on sort of a standard one. But yes, we will continue those.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for this update. And it's really exciting to see it all coming together, and it'll take time, but y'all are doing amazing work.
I was told it couldn't be done. Ha. Thank you so much for all your work and your team. I'm just delighted to see that. And Brittany, thank you as well for making sure that we're partnering well with that food bank. So we're going to move up to the Everside Clinic update. And oh no, I'm sorry, I skipped our budget. Just one second. Let's go back. We're going to do an end of fiscal year 24 quick overview. We don't have a lot of time. It's only 50 minutes left. So I will be plowing through some of these items quickly, but please ask questions. And I don't want to hurry through them if you want to know more about something. So it says at the top, budget report FY24. These are not final figures. We do not have final figures until the audit is complete. But these are our best sort of estimate on where things are. Having worked with the accountant, we will be providing you with a complete profit and loss statement, probably next month, in fact. So all the expenses that we know of, sometimes something really weird shows up late, but we're convinced that all the expenses for fiscal year 24 are in and are paid for that year. So you'll see that, yes, we did, under the second, under health insurance there, we did pay go OPEB this year out. We did not spend all that fund, and that's good to know. I mean, we've got a little bit of a surplus there. Staff do change around, so it could be that, Lexington Park, we budgeted correctly, but staff moved there away from another branch. Therefore, we've got a surplus in one branch, and Lexington Park had a deficit. But we're happy with that budget line. We'll move on. I'm happy to say under utilities that electrical expenses were not what we thought they were going to be. We understand that there may be an increase this year, but we think that our budget is right for this year that we're in. But that's nice to see that we did not, did not have to spend quite as much there. On page 3 at the very top, circulation collection, that's our book. Looks like we didn't spend it all. I'd kind of like to explain that. So what we have to do is encumber funds. We're expected to have a book come out, and we even over encumber for the year. So we, if everything came through, we'd spend more. But what often happens in the publishing industry is that a book gets canceled or a book gets delayed. So those expenses we thought we'd have in June, or even in May, some of those things that we set aside money for, those books did not come through. So that's why there's an increase there. They may come through this year. We will keep after that, but we are spending as much as we can of that budget. Down where it says mobile library expenses, remember that we did budget for the entire fiscal year last year, because last January of 2023, what it would have been, we thought we were going to have it for the whole year, but we didn't. So we think we have the budget right for this year. You'll see under professional services, under payroll services, almost a $9,500 deficit. We will talk in a couple of minutes about how that is being fixed for this year. Good news there. So look, if you would, on page 6.
I'm sorry, can we get back to that one?
Sure.
Professional services. So you're going to talk about how you fixed it, but accounting and payroll quite a bit higher than what you anticipated. Something occur, or was there an increase in charges, or?
Belinda's going to look that up, but basically that's the charge we pay for paycheck.
Also, the accounting one is the line you're asking about, right? Not
payroll. Payroll services.
Yeah.
Payroll.
Two different things,
There's
right?
two different things.
Yeah.
So are you asking about the payroll or the accounting?
Payroll.
Well, they're both higher than budgeted.
Okay. So the accounting one, we did have the accountant look into a couple of things that we weren't anticipating, so they do charge us for that. So that increased a couple of the quarters more than we had planned. And also the quarters, we do have to kind of guess what they're going to charge us. We can make a guesstimate based on what we have the previous year, and I underestimated it that year. But we did also have them look into a couple of our issues that we had. And we last audit, we cleaned up the escrow account that was in our books, and that took some time. So that was part of that cost.
So your accounting and auditing they're more consultants.
Yes. So the accounting and auditing is literally our accountant, the auditor that we pay, and the Bolton who audits the OPEB. Those are the three things that go into that.
Okay.
And then the payroll services are because Paychecks was expensive, and also we had to add on an ESR cost, which is tracking of the health insurances for 1096s and 1095s. We've pulled that off. We'll talk about that with the payroll new RFP, but it just Paychecks increased.
So it's not a fixed rate for the year. We're going to charge you this. It's varying.
So payroll companies charge by how many people are on your payroll each time you run the payroll. And then there's also additional charges if we do a security check, or if we do
onboarding or offboarding or anything.
All the W-2s are additional charges. They charge by the W-2. Then there's the 1095s and 1096s that they run. They charge by that number. So yeah, it's not fixed. So I'm doing an average and making that calculation.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that question, Judith. Everything else looks fairly standard on terms of the in terms of that, but I'd like to move to page 6 and look at services and fine income. You'll see that both were higher than anticipated, which is good. You see that we took in $32,233 for fines. If you compare that to our total budget, that's a pretty small amount. And I would like us this upcoming, now not the year we're in, But for the next fiscal year to consider eliminating fines, Calvert and Charles already have. We're kind of the lone holdout there. We think that it may be costing us a little bit of library business, frankly. But we've done studies and we know that books come back, if anything, even more when there's no fines in place. And if you do a sort of bulk fine forgiveness for recent fines, people who haven't been coming to the library for a while come back. 32,000, that is basically a part-time person's salary. We've never wanted to eliminate fines so far, but I think it's a discussion I'd like us to have for next fiscal year. The use of fund balance, you'll see we had budgeted $75,600 to balance this budget, and we did not touch that. So we did not go into the red for the year. If you look at page 7, you'll see grand total expenses and revenue at the bottom of that page. Right now, and again, I caution that this is not a final figure until after the audit. But remember that the audit includes many things that are not actually income and outgo for us. For example, the state share into retirement. The state puts that in. We never see that money. It includes things like rent. It includes your finances for the board. This is what we think for now, and we're pretty confident of this number, but let's wait till that that audit is done, is that we had $8,113 more than we spent. So in the past, that would be money that would be at your discretion. You could say, all right, we're going to increase our fund balance by $8,000, or you could put that in against the OPEB. And that was not a decision for now. That's just what we think. The end of fiscal year 24, we didn't go into the hole, which is good. We came really close to being right on what we want in terms of the money coming in. And $8,000, if you compare it to nearly $5 million, is infinitesimal. So I'm happy with basically how the year came out in terms of the expenses.
Yeah, that's a lot of careful financial stewardship. Well done.
For this year so far, we're only 17% into it. I only wanted to make note of one number for you. Actually, I'll point to two places. One is page 4. You see IT F&E new $30,000 and it's all spent already. We ordered computers for the year. And so we have a 3-year process by which we try to replace the public computers especially, so that they are up to date and able to run well. And so that's kind of a place where we'll need, if we have any kind of emergency expenses, to perhaps draw on Friends funds. I have met with the Friends and they are going to be giving us $60,000 this year, and they expect more before the year's end. The other number I'd like us to look at is on page 6, and it's again, it's services and fines, and you'll see that that increase over what we're budgeted for, although we budgeted more this year, continues to grow. So we're getting a little bit more income in than we thought we might, and those are kind of the things that I think I'm sort of looking at right now. What's that? Why, why is that? But everything else I think is pretty much within tolerance for only 17% of the year having gone by.
Michael, before we kind of move off this, thinking about wrapping up the year, are we still on track to receive the preliminary draft of the audit sooner than last year?
Belinda has done nearly all her work with accounting, and I should probably be letting her address this question. We've got one thing outstanding, and we've done an email follow-up. We do not have Bolton's actuary report yet, and we need that as the final piece. I'll say we are on track for it. But remember that although it's due to the state on November 1st, if it's not then, we just send a preliminary, because I'm sure we'll have a draft and say, here's preliminary draft, we'll give you the final version. We want to make sure that you as a board have a chance to look at that. If you have questions you wish to ask the auditors, we'll make sure that we meet with them with you. I want to make sure that you're feeling confident that this is a process that you have full oversight on.
And you and I had emailed before this meeting about that annual report element too. So next month for the October meeting, are we going to be looking at and approving the annual report?
If the state has sent me the request,
yeah.
Sometimes that request does not come until November.
Yeah.
But so every year we have many, many things that we do with the state. So the first one tends to be the official notification of what the state fund is and the county fund is, and the county commissioners sign off on that. We have to give them notice of who our auditor is every year. We have to look at our network and tell them, here's what our filtering system is, here's what it covers, have we reviewed it with staff? We have to give them two forms of statistics, and one is this annual report, and they send us this request and we basically give them that. I will have it for you, I hope in October, but if not, definitely November.
Okay.
The other thing we have to do there is we have to log into a database and we put in statistic after statistic, our finances, and that all gets reported by the state up to the federal government. So yeah, there's lots of things we do with them, but I will make sure you see that report.
Thank you.
Moving on to Everside. One of you asked a question about this. Where are we with Everside? And that's the new health clinic that's on Moakley Street. It is open. So I just like to, I talked with the county. I haven't given you this in a print format because they're all guesses at this point. We don't know. We know what the cost for that service will be. We don't know what our cost is going to be, and here's why. We pay a percentage based on the number of people enrolled. So does the school, so does Metcom, and so does the county. This past year, our percentage was 2.32% of that total figure. So let's assume it's going to stay 2.32% for this year, and it's probably not going to vary too much from that. The total fee for the Evergreen service is going to be $638,814. Our 2.32% will be $14,820 that the library will be paying for part of that. Now, again, this is a big guess, but the county has told me that they are expecting a $1.3 million refund on the healthcare cost. And you recall that every year we get a certain, sometimes we've got to pay out because the expenses were more, sometimes we get a little bit back. They're expecting a $1.3 million return, and our 2.32% of that, what we might expect to get, although again, this is not a final number, would be $30,160 back. So that will cover the cost, and the county is going to do the same thing. They're going to pay the cost for the Evergreen out of their share back. So we should have coming back, it looks like about $15,000 above that. What we do is we tend to put that into the budget and we use it to help pay for healthcare costs. Although a couple of years you have said, I want to put that into the OPEB, and we have. So we don't know what that number is yet, but those are my best estimates. In answer to your question is that it's going to be $14,820, which will be covered by that healthcare refund.
We actually have to put that money back into the cost of health insurance, but then that would technically free up other money that then you could decide if it went to OPEB or not. But this actually, a refund from this actually has to go back into the cost of the health insurance.
So which line on the FY25 budget does this fall into?
It's the refund or the Everside?
The Everside.
It's the admin fee under the health insurances.
Thank you.
It's built into the budget, yeah. So we will see what all these numbers are. Thank you for asking. And again, I'm sorry that I don't have specifics for you yet, but the county will get us specifics as soon as they possibly can. We know that percentage will know what the amounts are.
While we're on that page, may I ask a question? So we have OPEB, 2 lines, 96,000, and OPEB funding 50. Where are the asset strategy costs going?
That's under a separate place entirely.
Under accounting?
Yeah, that we don't put them there. Those are healthcare costs. So we put the contract with asset strategy under accounting, and I believe we got that budget at 10,000.
That's probably going to be a little short every tenth
That's
of the market.
been what they've been doing for the last couple of years. I think it's good, but that can be a discussion for another day, as Judith has already brought up today. You know, what are we going to do, John? You addressed that today. I think it would be a good discussion for you to have as it's on a strategic level in the future. Other questions about the Everside?
Will we get any stats from the county on how many?
End of the year, probably. It is a 3-year contract, but we do not have to stay in. You know, if we find none of our folks are using it, we may say, okay.
Great.
Move to security update. You've asked for that. I just wanted to give you a quick update. So at this point, we have panic alarms working at all 3 locations and the mobile library. Employees can push a button and notify a vendor of security incidents. They can summon law enforcement. At Lexington Park and Charlotte Hall, the front exterior doors can be locked from the customer service desk. At Charlotte Hall, it's actually behind, in a room behind the customer service desk, but I think it's a pretty secure location. So we're waiting for the county and a company called Crest Lock. The county does have a contract in place with them now, but we're not first in line to lock the exterior doors at Lexington Park customer security desk right out front here, and also from the customer service desk at Leonardtown. When those are done, most of the main things that we said in that security audit are actionable. We'll do a couple more. Oh, I'm sorry. We do have at all 3 libraries a monitoring stations where all security cameras can be viewed.
Is that a manned location?
I'm sorry?
Is there a person there? Is that staffed? Or is it just available?
I believe that it is staffed most of the time, but especially here at Lexington Park. They can view it right at the security station right out here and do. At other places, probably not, I'm going to say every minute, but frequently. And we, of course, can keep the security footage on all the cameras for about 2 weeks. In progress, we have a camera upgrade here at Lexington Park. The cameras will be better at night and will allow us to capture license plates. The remaining items on that security audit, which I hope will be done before the end of this fiscal year, and I believe I have it on the goals there. We would like some external motion lights here at Lexington Park, especially out back. You know, somebody walks by, the light will turn on. And that shouldn't be all that expensive. You might have those in your home. In my case, I have found out that my house has raccoons and skunks. We do want a small doorbell type camera outside the staff entrance from the lobby at Leonardtown. Currently, you can ring the bell. We don't know who's out there, and we just think it would be a good idea to have the ability to see who that is. And really, of the things we could afford on that security audit, those would pretty much finish it up. I mean, they talked about ballistic glass. They talked about bollards. A number of the things they talked about, I think are well outside our ability to afford. Ballistic glass to be thousands and thousands of dollars, for example. It's not a bad idea. Knock on, these aren't wood, but I hope we never have an incident where it's needed. But I think that we offer as secure a location as we can to our staff, and that's an important concern for us. So I think we're moving through that audit pretty well. we've had to wait for the county and a number of things, but we're moving forward on it.
And if these are county buildings, can we look to them for some of these unaffordable?
Well, for example, they're upgrading the alarm system right now at Charlotte Hall. They do some of the work for us. Things like the cameras, that's kind of on us. We actually own those cameras, so they don't necessarily do those because we put them in, we own them, we can move them around.
I mean, is there something on the list, Michael, that you'd like to have, but you think it's out of our reach financially, that you think would be important to have?
No, that really, looking at that audit, we've pretty much got what, so, you know, one of the suggestions, for example, was form a neighborhood watch here. That's kind of outside our purview. Another was develop a policy forbidding hoodies. That wasn't going to fly. In terms of our particular customer base. So of the things that we can afford, with the things I've just gone over with you, I think we've got it finished.
I appreciate your steady progress on this.
Move to our tactical plan update, including artwork. Do we have that to show?
Can I speak about security? Sorry.
Yes.
Mary Ann.
Hi, Mary Ann.
Mary Ann.
I don't have a voice. But Michael said we monitor the cameras at Hall and Leon, you know, the majority of the time. And honestly, we don't really have the staffing to do that. We monitor the cameras in the drive-through area at Leonardtown so that we can see people arriving. But otherwise, I don't think that they're monitoring that constantly. And Hall, I believe, is not monitoring at all. Again, it's a staffing issue. We don't have the staff to do that.
We check it as needed if there's an issue.
Okay.
Right. I think that was the point, was if you need to run back to the station, then you can see what's going on.
Where it can be done, yeah.
Sure.
Charlotte Hall can be, we have a third computer at the desk we could set up to monitor the cameras though.
That used to be done, and I have seen staff doing that. So I'll talk with you about that.
That was Tim. That was Tim, our IT guy.
Thank you, Tim.
I have a question about the panic button.
Yeah.
So if one is pushed, does that launch the response, or does it launch a phone call asking what the problem is?
Phone call asking what the problem is. And if there's no response very quickly, then it launches a response.
We have accidentally pushed the button. We have now trained all staff on their use and location, but the response was rapid. We were very, very pleased with the response, and a little, chagrined that we had to say, so sorry. Thank you for your swift assistance.
And also those were during our training period. So it had just been set up. And so even during the training period, it was a very quick response.
Thank you.
So, Amy, I'd like you to, Amy Dickinson, in this case, branch manager at Leonardtown, I'd like you to review this, but looking ahead and knowing you'd like to be done by noon and you might have your own business, I will give you the tactical plan update next month. But there is a document in there that's got some checks on things we've already done, because I want to leave time to talk about the RFP responses, and that's probably the most important thing. So Amy, if you could just go ahead and yeah.
Sure. So as many of you know, we received grants last year from the St. Mary's Arts Council. And in speaking with our staff, normally a lot of this we would put towards programming or supplies for programming or what have you. But one of my staff members, Christine, who was here earlier, had the lovely idea of, should we include some Indigenous art in the Leonardtown Library? Because it's a lovely building. The aesthetics are great, but majority of the art we have there is not that. And it would be nice to have something that's a little bit more diversified and more representative of the community. And so we went back to the Arts Council with this, and they absolutely loved the idea. They put us in touch with Francis Gray, who was a tribal council member of the Piscataway, Kanoi, clan, sorry, the group. And he in turn, did a lot of work and put us in touch with Ayana, who is the artist here. So as you can see, this is currently hanging in the Maryland room. I just want to point out, you'll see some kind of white items. Yeah, so we have a protective cover on this. So that's actually a glare because we didn't have a way to secure it to the wall. So next time you're in the library, please do take the opportunity to go to the Maryland room and take a look at it. It is an absolutely beautiful piece.
Yeah, so this was my cell phone photograph of it, and it captured the lights, and I couldn't figure out any way not to have them.
Yeah.
So see when you're at Leonardtown, which you will be next month, go to the Maryland/Mary Lee Russell room and check that out.
Is this on loan, a gift?
This is a permanent piece. This is a permanent
so it's
piece.
A gift
so we negotiated the terms with Ayana. We originally wanted this to be a mural across the entirety of the fireplace, but we quickly found out that the canvas alone would cost more than the actual grant. So Ayana did great work and worked with us. And it's called Elikatink, and it is literally a day in the life of the village. So you will see aspects of the three sisters there, the corn, the pumpkin. You'll see a lot of wildlife. You'll see the fishing, a lot of nature. And she did really great work in this. And subsequently, through another grant that the Arts Council provided us with, she was able to come down, and actually we had a meet and greet with the artist, and she presented a lot of her other artwork, because this isn't her normal area of expertise. She does a lot of like quill work. She does a lot of tanning, and she brought all of her artwork with her, and it was able to be a presentation to the community, and we had a great turnout. We had 62 people come, and it was a very tactile experience to the kids. They got to touch the artwork. They got to touch her carved wood pieces, the deer tanned leather that's done with brain tanning, which I'm still trying to recover from knowing about that process. But it was just a really wonderful thing, and it was really appreciated by the community. We've since had several educators reach out to the library and ask us for her contact information because they just enjoyed the presentation so much. And also some of the St. Mary's County Arts Council members were there, the board members, and they were very pleased with it. So we're very proud of it. We're very happy. And the room itself is also an art gallery in our agreement with the Arts Council. So as you come, you can see this work, but you can also see bi-monthly various other art pieces throughout that are currently on display there. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but yeah, it's a beautiful piece.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to, well, unfortunately, Marianne can't be here. You heard her voice, but she is watching.
I'm sorry,
so Belinda's
Michael, before you jump in, anything on the tactical plan you want to highlight?
One item on the tactical plan we're getting ready to get into right now.
Okay.
So I'll just say that's probably the most important one for now. And I'll give you a full report on tactical plan next month, but I do think that this is important to get to.
Great.
So Belinda will give you a presentation about our HR selection, a selection of our HR module, and that's the good news. I'm not going to steal her thunder, though. The good news about that budget line that went negative.
So we've given you two presentations in the packet. I'm going to just go over the one that's from the library, but the other one is what we asked Paylocity to put together for you. If you have questions on that, you can ask on that specifically. It's a lot of information. So what we really wanted to hit on, and I am sorry that Marianne is not with me, but we wanted to hit on the reason we chose who we chose. They were not the least expensive. However, they were all pretty much in line with each other. And what we went with the company that we felt best aligned with the library itself. So first, the challenges with paychecks are, as you saw, they are more than $45,000 a year. And we've had them since, I believe, 2016,
Yes.
2017.
Yeah.
And they never upgraded our system. As a matter of fact, they didn't upgrade it until this year when I have continuously asked why we can't do these certain things. And then they finally looked at our system and said, wait, you're old, your system's so old, it's outdated. And I'm like, well, they updated it to the max that they would, which is very little, but we got a few extra things this past year because of that. But so a payroll system actually has several parts to it. There's the actual paycheck, the time card, time and labor, which is where people can clock in and out. That is one section. There's the actual payroll, which is where I would run the payroll. And then there's generally an HRIS, or a human resources system, which is where you can track a lot of other employee information. With paychecks, we have an HR module as part of our system that is not actually linked to the rest of the payroll, so it would require double and triple entry. So, and also the time and labor is only partially connected to the payroll. So I'm already doing some double entry, so using the HR system, which is actually very difficult to use, would require triple entry, so we don't use it. And so it's a costly expense that we don't even have. We asked them about canceling it, and because of EEOC, you need that one little section, so you can't cancel the entire module. Those modules don't talk to each other well. So one of the things we were looking for in the new company was a single module system. So a lot of companies, especially the older ones like Paychex and ADP and stuff, they started with just the payroll side. And then over time, with new technology, they would add a time and labor module, and then they would add an HRIS module. When I started in payroll 25 years ago, I worked with ADP, and they were just adding the HRIS system. I had to build an HRIS database behind the ADP side. It's been added on. So newer companies, or ones that are starting up, they create their entire system as a one module, so it's all working together. So we were looking for that. So those are some of the issues we've had with Paychex and why we wanted to move away from them. So the process, yep. As I think we talked about this a little bit last month, we researched a number of companies. We talked to other Maryland libraries through our listserv. We talked to SMRLA. We got names of companies that we could use or look into. We also had a couple cold calls in there. One actually occurred 2 years ago, and I looked at that company 2 years ago, really liked them, but we weren't ready to move forward. So we contacted them again. So we reached out to each of these companies. We asked them to fill out our RFP, but as they're filling it out, we also asked them to present us with demonstrations. So those demonstrations occurred generally over 5 or 6 meetings for each company. They would start with a meeting to discuss what they offered and what we needed. Then the next meeting would be a demonstration of their actual program, what they could do. Generally that would take 2 because these systems are very large. And then we would have follow-up meeting as to what they didn't present and if they had questions. And then we usually had the final one, which we said and questioned all of their hidden fees because there was always some. So once we did all of that, as we were looking through these systems, there were 3 that really we could eliminate 2. We looked at 5, we eliminated 2 pretty quickly because they were either more than one module or didn't have what we needed, or felt like they wouldn't quite meet our requirements. So the other 3 were really great, but one really did come to the top, and that was our Paylocity system. And what we looked at and what we were specifically looking at for each of these companies for payroll was if it was compatible with our QuickBooks, because you have to pull all of that information in, whether it's easy to do. All of these do compliance the same. They run payroll pretty much the same. So we're looking at some things like that. We're looking at the time cards, the time punches, the leave requests, how that will work for our employees, how easy it is for them to access it. on a computer and an app, and what it looks like to them, as well as to our managers who will have to approve it. We're talking to them about what kind of customer service they provide, because if there's any issues with a payroll, those have to be dealt with quickly in order for the payroll to process in a timely manner and people to get their checks on time. Reporting paychecks has a terrible reporting structure for me. It's very difficult to write reports, and I'm not terrible at writing reports. So their database was difficult to work with, and these seem to be much more streamlined. Their recruiting, hiring, onboarding, that system was also something we're looking for, because we use that. We input our requisitions in. They are pushed out to Indeed or ZipRecruiter or whatever. Those are where our people are applying and come back into our system, so that once we choose someone, we're just pressing a button and all of that information from an employee's application is immediately put into payroll. So how that worked and who they worked with, who they pushed out to, who they didn't, what companies were used. With Paychecks, we can only push out to Indeed. These companies had multiple people we could push out to. And then the performance management and training modules was important for us, because right now we do performance management with our employees twice a year, and then we have informals multiple times throughout the year. And this Paylocity system worked best the way we currently do it, which allowed input in the system between the employee, the managers, and the supervisors. They could all work within the system and input and give feedback without having to have separate sheets of Excel, Word documents that then had to be uploaded 3 different places. And that training management system, the time management, how it looked for our employees, and Paylocity showed us a budgeting tool that they have, which will allow me to budget and predict salaries for the next fiscal year, that right now I do on a spreadsheet that looks like this for the budget when I'm making, because I make 6 or 7 of those, trying to figure out what's the best percentage of COLA that we can afford and all of that. They also have the ability for me to pre-enter, which most of them do, but this one looked really great. I can pre-enter all of our steps on all of our COLA to appear at the right time and do the calculation for me. Those are all hand calculations I do with Paychecks and do manual entries. So those are what set Paylocity apart, as well as the bSwift integration. They do work with bSwift, which is the health insurance database that the county uses that I have to input into. So a lot of payroll companies will also manage your health insurance, but because we do that through the county, we aren't using that particular module from any of the payroll companies, but theirs does work with bSwift, so I could possibly link those if I need to, because I'm entering a separate database for all of the health insurances. Does anyone, all of the companies were at least half the price of Paychecks. So that's what we came down with.
I did have a question, Belinda. Is the transition plan for the data part of that RFP, or is that going to be on you to try to port it over?
Nope. So everything was included in the RFP. Those hidden fees we talked about. I should say I forgot to mention that the Paylocity waived the implementation fee for us. So there's an implementation fee. There's the transfer of information fees that may occur, and then there's all the different fees and how they charge for W-4s, W-2s. Background checks, all of that was factored into what we were looking at. We had a whole Excel spreadsheet on who and what was charging for what. One of the companies fell out solely because when we looked at their fine print, it appears that they were going to charge us $200 a month every time we called and asked them a question, which seemed silly since we do that a lot. So that's part of this. It's all part of the entire process. That would have been part of the implementation fee, which they waived. We are actually starting that transfer of information over on Monday. We have our first transfer of information on Monday to Paylocity. So they'll start the whole process of setting up our employees in the system. We will do this for the next 3 months. They will run a dummy payroll the week before we start our regular payroll so that it will mirror paychecks to make sure that everything flows correctly. And then the first payroll that we pay in January of 2025 will be on Paylocity.
And are they able to pull data directly from paychecks, or
Yes.
are you having to export?
They
Okay.
are pulling data directly from paychecks.
Fantastic.
Yes. That's what our meeting on Monday is. They're going to access paychecks from me.
2 questions, please. Are we paying any kind of a penalty to leave paychecks?
We are not. We looked at the contract. I think it said maybe 30 days, and we've given them 3 or 4 months.
30 days for paychecks.
Yep.
And my second question is, would you explain the Bolton partner discount?
So, as you guys probably realize, Bolton is who
Our
does
actuary.
our actuary, who does our OPEB. So through the county, we are a client of Bolton, and they contract with Bolton to do some. Bolton does a lot of health insurance things. So they work with payroll companies like this, and they have a Bolton discount, and they gave it to us because we use Bolton. So that was a discount within our cost.
I'm not against taking a discount, but you know the county is with somebody else now.
But we aren't. We still have Bolton.
Okay. Through the county.
We have Bolton for our OPEB actuary.
We contract with Bolton and pay them.
All right.
And did you say how much this is going to be? I just see that it's less than.
Yeah, sorry. Marianne made that one for me, and I forgot to add that on. I do have it. If you'll let me look it up while you guys move on, I will do it. It is a calculation, and as I said earlier, it's a general monthly cost is what we'll have, because it is dependent on how many employees you have each month. But I do have it.
And I'm sorry if I missed this. How long is the contract with Paylocity?
So everyone we talked to, for the most part, I think there was one that had us on a 2-year contract, but the other, they are all basically month-to-month contracts. You can stay, you can leave when you want to leave.
So this looks like it can be remote accessed on
Yes.
your phone from managers. So if
Mhm.
they're off on vacation.
Yep. Yes.
But
so-
employees too will have this
Yes.
app, and they can go and see what their time card looks like, or did I get paid, and all those things.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So that was one of the important things that we were looking at, was the fact that we could use an app, because with paychecks until this year we couldn't, and even with that it's really difficult, and they can only do a limited amount. They can do anything that they can do on a desktop, they can do on that app, and as well as we will have clock in and out ability now, which we don't have at the moment with paychecks. And with that comes the geofencing that we will be implementing, which means that they cannot clock in or out until they are in the building. So it allows you to stop them from clocking out as soon as they pull into the parking lot, or as they leave their house saying, oh, I'm going to be late, I better clock in now. You can't do that. You have to be within the building. There are, of course, exceptions to that. You can pull specific people out if you need to, if they are working from home, or if they are working at a different location, or if they are working outreach. So all of that can be overridden, but that's part of the app.
Much staff training we would need to.
It will take some, well, for Marianne and I, we've already started. It will take us a lot, and specifically me, a lot of training over the next 3 months to learn everything I need to be able to input. And then included in all of the fees and in the implementation process are trainings for the managers, and then trainings for the staff.
And do we have a kind of a ballpark figure for this now?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I thought, oh, thank you.
I don't think it could be more than 25,000 a year.
Where is it?
Oh, that was the top.
Thank
of
you.
any
It's-
of them.
That's the
So,
top.
It's
Yeah.
2,100 a month. So that's,
4,000 change.
mhm.
So of other people that you talked to who use them.
Yep.
What was the length of time typically that they were with this company?
Oh, I don't remember that off the top of my head. I'm sorry. We talked to lots of different people, and not all of them had these people. We used, I think maybe 1 or 2 had them, and we talked to some other people that they recommended. I don't remember that particular question on mine.
All right, thank you.
So we have a new payroll vendor. In your packet, there is a single page sheet. It says AV RFP at the top. This was a straight Emma Maryland electronic vendors request. You put out a request for RFPs. We had 11 responses. I've listed the company names. That is public information. I've listed the bid amounts that they gave. And we had a 6-person panel. So we did set aside time for vendors to visit the locations and view the sites, submit RFPs. We evaluated the RFPs, and I've listed the votes by the panel. So we had 2 finalists, and we then reached back out to them with additional questions. I have brought the RFP responses, which you are welcome to take a look at. It is several hundred pages. We've given hip to Tim and Jeff, our IT specialist, who looked throughout. So basically, we got the best deal of the responses we liked best from a company called EGE, which is located in Rockville. They have upgraded projectors over the others. They have sterling references, I called, and they've done hundreds and hundreds of projects, and everybody I talked to was just glowing about them. And you see that other than ESHA, which replied the day before, and frankly, I'm sure that they're a great company, but they did not show up to look at the space and didn't give us the best response, that they were also the least expensive. So we do have $204,000 from the county for meeting room upgrade. So we will be spending at least this much. If there's anything once the systems are in place that we think we can, enhance, we can do that. It also will work for things like furnishings. So especially at Charlotte Hall, we might want to do just a little bit there. Their bid was for $162,569, but that included that tax fee. And so we have chosen them. We have a contract that is signed. Work will begin in late November and extend into December. Come January, we hope we'll have new AV systems in place with new projectors, better sound systems, easier to use. So that's kind of where we are with that.
So, dumb question. So is this, maybe give us a little bit of scope. This is equipment? Is it ongoing services? Is it something that works?
Equipment.
And just the equipment?
It's just equipment, yes.
Okay.
And installation?
Oh, yes, absolutely. They're
Okay.
going to come in and it's all going to be done. We're not doing any of this. It does have a 1-year warranty on everything.
And then you have staff.
everything.
You have staff like today that will come in and
Yeah,
that's your staff that comes in and sets things up.
Yeah,
or
this company is going to bring in all the equipment, going to install all the equipment, going to haul away all the old equipment that we don't want.
In all 3 libraries.
It's actually only 2. It's this room, including next door. So these are done separately because we've got their partition, but it is possible to have the same system work throughout. The meeting room on a hill called the Longfellow Room and Charlotte Hall. Leonardtown's got a pretty new system, and they've just recently, at long last, after 4 years, come and done some work on it with the county. So that one's in pretty good shape. We've got a screen that isn't working there, and the county is working on that, but that one's okay. These others, this system is original with the building. It's 22 years old.
And so you're saying we're getting a $200,000 grant from the county that will cover this?
We got a one-time increase in funding of $204,000. So the county gave us $282,000. It was $281,900 as a increase over our funding, and then they gave us $204,000 one time. So next year, when they give us money, they're not going to be including that $204,000.
So that's already in our.
It's already in our budget.
25
yes. Yeah.
budget. The 282 and the 204 we won't see again?
The 282 will be, I mean, that's going to be our standard increase, and that's what we'll work on as our baseline in future years. You know, assuming something horrible doesn't happen with the economy, but that's kind of what the next budget line will start at. But that additional 204,000 is not going to be part of that, unless they forget. You know, I suspect they're not going to forget.
Michael, your comment here about the tax, is that unique because they're a Maryland company?
No, it's just that that's the bid they presented, and when we were going back and said, okay, you know, what's going on here? They said, well, there's that tax. We looked at it and said, we're tax free. So they talked to their vendors and said, yes, you're tax free. So their original thing was 162, but we're not going to pay that tax. So now their actual bid is 156.
And that would have been across the board of any of them.
Well,
if they included tax.
Yeah, I don't think any of them included tax.
Okay, thank you.
Michael, just looking at the time that we're at, are there any kind of key points that we should discuss before we start to wrap things up?
No, I think the other thing, things coming up, Staff Day is December 6th in this very room starting about 9 o'clock. You're welcome to join us for that. This evening at the Rex, we are having a Library Foundation fundraiser. A comic named Dave Hill is coming. The Rex has graciously agreed to give us a portion of the gate. So we're thankful for that support. I believe the show is mostly sold out, but I've got a 4-top, so I'll be going to see, and we will be allowed to do a 50-50 raffle there at the Rex. So we'll hope we'll get some money in for that. And that's kind of what I had for you. I will give the other updates next month.
All right. Thank you very much, Michael. Before we wrap up, any new trustee business folks want to throw out on the table for now? Okay. Then I think we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, John.
Second.
Thank you, John. Any discussion? I will say, good to see everybody again. Thank you for a productive meeting. We got a lot of things crossed off the list. Looking forward to more next month. All in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstain? All right, motion passes. Thanks, everybody. See you in October.